On the 25th of February 2022, I was around halfway through my second playthrough of OlliOlli World, and a notification dinged.
Hello.
Elden Ring was ready to play. Now, I don't replay games much, and I do love that Souls series. I should have leapt out of my chair and started consuming From Software's new offering, but I didn't. Something about OlliOlli World had sunk me into a molasses-like pit, and I couldn't put it down. OlliOlli World is a 2.5D skateboarding game developed by Roll7. You get to create your own character and sound to an incredibly charming world filled with friendly residents and sick skate spots. You're going to be flying through levels, chaining tricks together to chase challenges and hunt high scores. This forms a strong foundation, but the special sauce is the way it builds a sense of flow. If you've ever watched any productivity guides, you've heard about the flow state. It's that sensation of sinking into a task where the world disappears into the background. But it isn't just when you want to destroy some revision, crush spreadsheets, or pile drive sales presentations. It's also something we experience in our entertainment. There's an interesting discussion about its intersection with immersion. Like, on the face of it, they're almost interchangeable, but do you think you can flow with a movie? It's interesting to think about, but not what I want to talk about in this video. In this video, I want to talk about how OlliOlli World induces this flow state in a player. Because ordinarily, it takes time for me to flow with a game, so to speak, both when starting a new game and when sinking into a play session. You know, some get to know each other time. But with OlliOlli World, we were already in sync. So how does it pull this off? Well, according to this very thick and throbbing textbook that I definitely read all of, there are 9 elements of flow. Now, 4 of these are more outputs or results, so we're going to get rid of them and go through the 5 elements of flow that make OlliOlli World impossible to put down. Number 1, clear goals. If you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, there's no way to focus. Like wandering around an area with nothing left to do, looking for an exit. OlliOlli World sidesteps this with simple baseline goals. Like 95% of the time, you can beat any level by just avoiding obstacles. Of course, there are high scores and challenges for each level, but they're simple themselves and easily ignored if you don't fancy it. You always know what you should be doing. If I'm riding on the skateboard, good. If I'm riding on my face, bad. Number 2, immediate and unambiguous feedback. We all know this problem in games. You're working on a puzzle or task, you understand the end goal and you have a theoretical solution, but when you test it, it doesn't work. Now, you're not sure if the solution is wrong or just the execution. Is it dum-dum head or dum-dum fingers? This unease can apply to micro moments as well. To build flow, a player has to be constantly aware if what they're doing is correct. OlliOlli World achieves this through a bunch of micro feedback mechanisms. For instance, every trick adds just a little bit to your score and that pops up above your head as it happens. You can press A just as you land for a little bonus, and if you do that right, you get a perfect or good that also pops up above your head to let you know you did it well. There's also this pushing mechanic that, if you time right, gives a burst of clouds that billow behind you. These little touches of feedback are everywhere, and they don't just let you know you're doing well, they give the game a sense of pace and tactility. The game is giving your eager brain a little pat every time you do something well. Number 3, perceived control over the activity. Our success in games must be based on our actions, not the whim of arbitrary bugs or indecipherable mechanics. OlliOlli World does this really well. To start, this is a properly polished game. I don't recall any bugs. Also, this style is not just charming, it also has a really strong visual language. It's obvious what is skatable, wall rideable and grindable, and what is obviously not. And if you still fail, the restart is essentially instantaneous. You don't have time to stew, you're just back in control. There was never a moment of bullshit. If I screwed up, it was me. But same goes for my successes. Number 4, a balance between the skills of an individual and the activity's demands. If you've ever heard about flow, you've probably seen this graph. Essentially, if a task is too easy, you get bored. Too hard, you get frustrated. This is why it's illegal to do hoovering and quantum mechanics at the same time. You simply wouldn't survive the ordeal. So, games have difficulty levels and get harder as you play, shifting this graph to meet the player. But there's a lot of ego flying around with difficulty, and there's no guarantee that a player will select the right difficulty for them. I'm not immune to this either. If I see that little pop-up suggestion to turn down the difficulty, I turn into an offended Victorian housewife. Now, you could try and take the ego out of it by having quietly adaptive difficulty like Resident Evil 4, but I think OlliOlli World takes this one step further. You are in full control of the difficulty on a moment-to-moment basis. For instance, you're presented with a gap with a rail on the other end. You could just ollie over it, skate away. You could do a fancy trick and grind away, or any combination in between. Some form of this kind of decision is happening every 5 seconds in this game. You can play safe or push yourself. That could be choosing the more difficult route through a level, or going for a more difficult combo of tricks. And they continue adding new mechanics, pushing, grinding, new tricks, manuals, grabs, spins. There is always a next rung for you to reach for if you feel up for it, but there was never a huge leap to get there. You can almost feel mechanics becoming second nature and your body searching for the next step, and OlliOlli World is always waiting patiently with the next course. I spent 15 hours with this game, and by the end I was blasting through high score targets, but I was still learning how to tweak a grind. To return to the flow graph, if you plow my playthrough, I was in the center of that sweet zone the whole time because I was in full control of that graph. Number 5, intrinsic motivation toward an activity. I enjoyed unlocking new clothes, playing dress up, and I probably wouldn't have picked up OlliOlli World if it wasn't for the style. But if you gave me just these mechanics with black and white stick drawings, I would still love this game. Not quite as much, but I would. It is just that pleasurable to play at any given moment. Now, I'm not sure make gameplay so good that players will go for a high score just as an excuse to play more is a practical or useful goal when developing a game. But everyone that's done it has become a classic. And now that includes OlliOlli World. Okay, thank you very much for watching my video, and thank you so much for your support on the Divinity video. It's done ridiculously well. Sorry this one took so long. I think I'm going to bump my schedule down to monthly because I want it to be something I can stick to. So I'll see you in August again. Thank you so much. See you soon.